Taman stared at the screen in front of him. The numbers did not make sense. After working at Nexus Prime for 12 years, he had seen many strange things in space. But this was different. This was impossible. The monitoring station floated in the dark between 3 star systems. Its job was simple. Watch the void expanse and make sure nothing ever went in or came out. For 3,000 years, nothing had. The ancient barriers around that cursed place were too strong. Even the most powerful ships in the galaxy could not break through. But now, deep inside the forbidden zone, something was moving. Taman's 6 arms moved quickly across the control panel. His species, the Velkari, were known for being careful and precise. They did not make mistakes with their equipment. He ran the scan again. The same impossible reading appeared. There was a ship inside the void expanse. "This cannot be right," he whispered to himself. His translator device made sure the words came out in standard galactic. Nothing can get through the barriers. He called his supervisor immediately. Within minutes, alarms were ringing throughout Nexus Prime. Within an hour, the alert had reached every major power in the galaxy. Far away, in a completely different part of space, Jiwoo was having the best day of her life. The human engineer floated in zero gravity inside the engine room of the Dauntless. Around her, machines hummed with power. She had built these machines with her own hands over the past 5 years. Today, they had finally worked. "Hyperspace jump complete," she said into her communication device. "All systems are working perfectly." Jiwoo had dreamed of this moment since she was a child. Humans had only discovered they were not alone in the universe 50 years ago, but they had never been able to travel far from their home system. Their technology was too simple, too basic compared to the rest of the galaxy. Until now, Jiwoo had found a new way to bend space. It was not like the methods other species used. It was simpler, cruder, but somehow it worked. The Dauntless had just made the longest jump in human history. "Jiwoo, you need to see this," came Captain Bo-Ram's voice over the communication system. "Come to the bridge." Jiwoo pushed herself through the corridors of the ship. The Dauntless was not big by galactic standards. Only 200 humans lived on board. But to Jiwoo, it felt like home. When she reached the bridge, she gasped. Through the main window, space looked different than anything humans had ever seen. Strange geometric shapes floated in the darkness. They were huge, some bigger than moons. They glowed with a soft, ancient light. "What are those?" asked Min Ho, the ship's scientist. He was already taking readings with his instruments. "I have no idea," said Captain Bo-Ram. "They appear to be artificial. Someone built them, but the energy readings are unlike anything in our databases." So Young, who handled communications, looked up from her station. "I am not picking up any signals from them. They seem empty." Jiwoo stared out at the structures. They were beautiful in a way that made her feel small. Whoever had built them must have been incredibly advanced. The shapes seemed to follow mathematical patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Should we go closer?" asked Jae-hyun, their best pilot. His hands were already moving toward the flight controls. Captain Bo-Ram thought for a moment. "We came here to explore. These structures appear to be abandoned. Let's take a closer look, but stay alert." As the Dauntless moved toward the nearest structure, none of the humans knew they were looking at the greatest mystery in galactic history. They had no idea that every major civilization had spent thousands of years trying to reach this exact spot. They did not know that their simple human technology had just accomplished what the most advanced species in the galaxy thought was impossible. Back at Nexus Prime, chaos was spreading. Taemin watched as his simple detection alert became a galaxy-wide emergency. His screen now showed dozens of different ship signatures racing toward the void expanse. The hegemony fleet was coming from the north. The Zephyrian Empire was approaching from the east. Even the mysterious Resonance had sent ships. "How is this possible?" asked his supervisor, a tall being with crystal-like skin. "The barriers have held for 3 millennia. Our best scientists said nothing could break through." Taemin checked his readings again. The signature was still there, still moving around inside the forbidden zone. It was not a large ship, smaller than most civilian transports. But somehow, it had done what entire fleets could not. "Sir," said another technician, "we are receiving emergency communications from all major powers. They all want to know the same thing. How did something get inside?" The supervisor's crystal skin changed color. showing stress. "Tell them we do not know. Tell them we are investigating. And tell them to stay away from the barrier zone until we understand what is happening." But it was too late for that. Every major power in the galaxy was already sending their fastest ships toward the void expanse. Some came to investigate. Others came to make sure their enemies did not gain access to whatever was inside. All of them shared the same fear, that something had awakened in the Forbidden Zone. On the Dauntless, the humans continued their exploration in happy ignorance. "These structures are incredible," said Yunji, their archaeologist. "The metal, if it is metal, does not match anything in our periodic table. And look at these markings." She pointed to symbols carved into the surface of the nearest structure. They glowed with the same soft light as everything else in this strange place. "They look like writing," said Minho. "But the patterns are too complex. It would take years to understand them." Captain Boram made a decision. "We will stay here for 48 hours. Take all the readings you can. This might be the discovery of the century." She had no idea how right she was. As the humans worked, their ship's simple radio transmitters sent out automatic signals. These signals were not meant to travel far, just basic navigation beacons that any human ship would recognize. But in this strange place, the signals were amplified by the ancient structures around them. The transmissions spread out across space, carrying with them proof that humans had achieved the impossible. They had entered the Forbidden Zone. They had reached the tomb of the progenitors, and they had done it by accident. Within hours, the signals reached the approaching fleets. Across 12 different species, the same question was being asked. Who were these humans, and how had they broken barriers that had stood for thousands of years? Taemin watched the readings on his screen and felt afraid for the first time in his long career. Something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. The old rules no longer applied. In the void expanse, the Dauntless continued its peaceful exploration, completely unaware that it had just started the biggest crisis in galactic history. Jiwoo floated near one of the ancient structures, taking detailed scans with her simple equipment. The readings were beautiful and strange. She felt like she was looking at art and science combined into something wonderful. She had no way of knowing that her scans were activating systems that had been dormant for millions of years. Deep inside the structures, ancient minds were beginning to stir. The progenitors had left guardians behind when they departed. Now, after eons of sleep, those guardians were waking up. The galaxy was about to discover that some barriers were not meant to keep things out. They were meant to keep things in. Admiral Hyunwoo had lived through 3 major galactic wars. He had seen planets burn and stars die. But he had never felt fear like this. The holographic meeting room aboard his flagship was filled with the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Representatives from 12 major civilizations sat around the virtual table. Each face showed the same expression, disbelief mixed with terror. "This is impossible," said the Zephyrian delegate, her blue skin shimmering with agitation. "Our quantum locks have held for 3,000 years. Nothing can break through them." "Yet something has," replied the crystalline form of the Resonant ambassador. When Resonance spoke, their words came as pure thought rather than sound. "The readings are clear. There is a vessel inside the void expanse." Admiral Hyunwoo studied the data one more time. The ship's signature was unlike anything in their databases. It was primitive by galactic standards, using basic fusion drives and simple metal construction, but somehow it had achieved what their most advanced technology could not. "Do we know who they are?" asked the delegate from the Outer Rim Coalition. "The signals suggest they call themselves humans," said Hyunwoo. "We have no record of this species in our databases. They appear to be unknown to galactic civilization." This caused another wave of shock around the table. Unknown species were rare. Most life-bearing worlds had been discovered and catalogued long ago. For a species to develop space travel without being detected was almost impossible. "Perhaps they are not from our galaxy," suggested the Velkari representative. "Extragalactic. Visitors would not be in our databases." "No," said the hegemony's chief scientist, a being with multiple heads who could process information faster than most computers. "The energy signatures are consistent with local space-time. They are from here. Somehow, we missed them." Meanwhile, aboard the Dauntless, Captain Boram was having the best day of her career. "The structures are definitely artificial," reported Minho from his science station. but the technology is beyond anything we have ever seen. Some of these materials should not be able to exist according to our physics. Boram nodded as she watched her crew work. The bridge of the Dauntless was simple compared to the alien ships that were racing toward them. Human technology was basic, functional, and honest. They did not have artificial gravity. The crew floated in zero gravity and used magnetic boots when needed. They did not have energy shields or quantum computers or psychic amplifiers, but they had something else. They had curiosity without fear. "Captain," said Jae-hyun from the pilot station, "I am reading some kind of pathway between the structures. It looks like it might be a navigation route. Can we follow it safely?" "I think so. The structures do not seem hostile. In fact, they seem to be welcoming us." So Young looked up from her communication station. "Captain, I am picking up massive energy signatures approaching our position. Multiple ships, different designs, they will arrive within 6 hours." Boram felt a chill run down her spine. "Are they hostile?" "Unknown. They are not transmitting any signals we can understand, but there are a lot of them." The captain made a quick decision. "Continue our exploration, but prepare for contact. If other species know about this place, we might be about to make first contact with someone." She had no idea that someone was actually 12 different civilizations, each more advanced than humanity, and all of them were coming because humans had done the impossible. Back in the holographic meeting, the debate was getting heated. "We must investigate immediately," insisted the hegemony delegate. "If these humans have found a way to breach the barriers, we need to understand how." "And risk awakening what lies dormant there?" asked the resonant ambassador. "The void expanse was forbidden for good reason. The progenitors left guardians behind. Admiral Hyunwoo had studied the ancient histories. Every schoolchild in the galaxy knew the story. The progenitors had once ruled all known space. Their technology was beyond comprehension. Then suddenly, they vanished. They left behind only empty structures and warnings to stay away." "The barriers were meant to protect us," said the Zephyrian delegate. "If these humans have broken through, they may have doomed us all. Or," said a new voice, "they may have given us the greatest opportunity in galactic history." Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was Kyung-soo, a Velkari who had risen to command rank in the hegemony fleet. His species was known for careful thinking and precise analysis. "Explain," said Admiral Hyunwoo. "For 3,000 years, we have wondered what happened to the progenitors. Their technology could solve every problem we face: energy shortages, population growth, even death itself. We have been too afraid to look for answers. But these humans are not afraid. They are already inside, exploring freely." "And if they wake something that destroys the galaxy?" asked the Outer Rim delegate. "Then at least we will finally know what we are afraid of," replied Kyung-soo. The meeting fell silent as everyone considered this. Finally, Admiral Hyunwoo spoke. "We cannot ignore this. Whether we like it or not, the situation has changed. I propose we send a joint expedition to make contact with these humans and assess the situation." "Absolutely not," said the Zephyrian delegate. "We should destroy them before they can cause more damage." This caused an uproar around the table. Half the delegates wanted to investigate. The other half wanted to eliminate the threat immediately. The argument grew louder and more heated. On the Dauntless, Yunji was making discoveries that would change everything. The human archaeologist had always been fascinated by ancient civilizations. Earth's history was full of mysterious ruins and lost knowledge, but this was different. This was beyond anything humans had ever imagined. "The structures are not just buildings," she reported to Captain Boram. "They are machines. Incredibly complex machines that are still functioning after who knows how long." "What do they do?" asked the captain. "I am not sure yet. But they are responding to our presence. Watch this." Yunji activated a simple laser scanner, the kind humans used, for basic geological surveys. When the beam touched one of the alien structures, symbols began to glow along its surface. Lines of light spread from the impact point, creating patterns that seemed to have meaning. "It is like they are trying to communicate with us," said Min-ho, watching the display with wonder. "Or teach us," added Yunji. "Look at how the patterns repeat. They are showing us mathematical relationships. This structure is a library, or maybe a school." Back in the holographic meeting, Admiral Hyunwoo was losing control of the situation. "Enough!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the arguments. "Fighting among ourselves will not solve this problem. The humans are already inside the void expanse. We can either work together to understand what is happening, or we can start a war over it. Which choice serves the galaxy better?" The delegates slowly quieted down. They all knew he was right. A war fought near the progenitor structures could awaken forces beyond their understanding. "What do you propose?" asked the resonant ambassador. "A joint fleet. Each major power contributes ships and personnel. We approach the humans peacefully and try to understand what they have discovered. If the situation becomes dangerous, we evacuate them and reseal the barriers. And if they refuse to leave?" asked the Zephyrian delegate. Admiral Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment. "Then we learn why the barriers failed and make sure it never happens again." The vote was close, but the motion passed. Within hours, the largest joint fleet in galactic history was forming around the edges of the void expanse. Ships from 12 different civilizations, each with their own technology and weapons, all focused on one small human vessel. On the Dauntless, alarms began to sound. "Captain," called So Young from her station, "I am reading multiple fleets approaching our position. 12 different ship types, all unknown designs. They will arrive within 2 hours. Captain Boram felt her stomach drop. "How many ships?" "Over 300. Captain, this is not a greeting party. This is an invasion fleet." Boram looked around her bridge at her small crew. They were explorers, not warriors. The Dauntless had no weapons beyond basic defense systems. If 12 alien civilizations wanted to destroy them, there was nothing they could do to stop it. "Continue our exploration," she said finally. "If this is our last day, let's make it count. Maybe we can learn something that will help humanity, even if we do not survive to share it." Her crew nodded and returned to their work. None of them knew that their peaceful exploration was causing panic across the galaxy. They were just humans, doing what humans did best, pushing forward into the unknown, regardless of the danger. In 2 hours, the most important first contact in galactic history would begin, and nobody knew what would happen next. The first thing Jae-hyun noticed was how beautiful the alien ships looked. From the cockpit of his small fighter craft, he could see the massive fleet that had surrounded the Dauntless. Ships of 12 different designs floated in the darkness, each one a work of art. Some were sleek and curved like flowing water. Others were geometric and crystalline. A few looked more like living creatures than machines. "Jae-hyun, return to the ship immediately," came Captain Boram's voice over the radio. "Do not engage with the alien vessels." But Jae-hyun was already too far from the Dauntless to turn back safely. When the alien fleet had appeared, he had been exploring one of the ancient structures in his fighter. Now he was trapped between the human ship and 300 alien vessels. "Captain, I cannot make it back without crossing their formation," he reported. "I am going to try to fly around them." What Jae-hyun did next would be talked about in galactic history classes for thousands of years. Instead of flying around the alien fleet, he flew through it. His small human fighter, with its simple fusion engine and basic navigation computer, weaved between alien vessels that were marvels of advanced technology. Ships that could destroy planets watched in amazement as the tiny craft slipped between them like it was performing a dance. Admiral Hyun-woo stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "How is that ship avoiding our sensors?" he asked his crew. "Sir, it is not avoiding them," replied his tactical officer. "Our sensors can see it perfectly. It is just not triggering any of our defense systems. This was impossible. Every ship in the joint fleet had automated defense systems that would track and target any unknown vessel. But somehow, the human fighter was invisible to those systems. Not because it could not be seen, but because the systems did not recognize it as a threat. On the bridge of a Zephyrian dreadnought, similar confusion was taking place. "Why are our weapons not locking onto the intruder?" demanded the ship's commander. "Unknown, sir. The targeting computers say there is nothing there to shoot at." The same thing was happening on every ship in the fleet. Their advanced technology, designed to identify and eliminate threats, could not understand what the human fighter was. It was too simple, too basic. Like trying to use a microscope to look at a mountain. Jae-hyun flew through the ancient structures with growing wonder. The progenitor ruins seemed to be guiding him, showing him safe pathways between the massive forms. Lights appeared along his route, as if the structures themselves were helping him navigate. "This is incredible," he whispered to himself. "It is like they want me to be here." What he did not know was that every automated defense system in the ancient structures was also ignoring him. Weapons that had destroyed entire fleets throughout galactic history simply did not fire. The progenitor defenses, like the alien sensors, could not comprehend what they were looking at. On the Dauntless, Captain Bo-Ram was dealing with her own impossible situation. "Captain," reported So Young, "we are receiving communications from multiple alien ships, 12 different languages, all trying to talk to us at once. Can you understand any of it? I am running everything through our translation programs. Most of it seems to be demands that we identify ourselves and explain how we got here. But Captain, some of these messages sound scared." Bo-Ram blinked in surprise. "Scared? They have 300 ships and we have one. What could they be scared of?" Meanwhile, Admiral Hyun-woo was asking himself the same question. The joint fleet had been carefully planned. Each species had contributed their best ships and most experienced crews. They had enough firepower to sterilize an entire star system. But faced with one small human vessel, they found themselves paralyzed by uncertainty. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "the human ship is responding to our hails. Put it through." The main screen flickered, and suddenly Admiral Hyun-woo was looking at the bridge of the Dauntless. The humans looked exactly like the species profiles suggested, bipedal, with soft skin and small eyes. But what surprised him was how calm they appeared. Captain Bo-Ram looked directly at him and smiled. "Hello," she said in accented but understandable, Standard Galactic. "I am Captain Bo-Ram of the human vessel Dauntless. We are explorers from the Sol system. We mean no harm to anyone." Admiral Hyun-woo found himself at a loss for words. In all his years of military service, he had never encountered a first contact situation like this. The humans were cheerful and friendly, as if they were meeting neighbors instead of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Captain Bo-Ram," he said carefully, "I am Admiral Hyun-woo of the Galactic Hegemony. You are in a forbidden zone. How did you penetrate the barriers?" Bo-Ram looked confused. "Barriers. We did not encounter any barriers. We detected an empty star system and came to investigate these fascinating structures. Are they yours?" The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. Empty star system? Did the humans not understand where they were? "Captain, you are in the void expanse. This region has been sealed for 3,000 years. The structures you see are progenitor ruins, the most dangerous artifacts in the galaxy." Bo-Ram's expression changed to one of genuine surprise. "Dangerous? They seem peaceful to us. In fact, they appear to be trying to communicate. Our archaeologist thinks they might be some kind of educational facility." Around the joint fleet, similar conversations were taking place on dozens of different channels. Human crew members were chatting happily with alien officers, describing their discoveries and asking questions about galactic civilization. The contrast was startling. Advanced alien species full of fear and caution, talking to humans who treated the greatest mystery in the galaxy like an interesting science project. Kyung-soo, watching from his position on Admiral Hyun-woo's bridge, began to understand what was happening. "Admiral," he said quietly, "I believe the humans do not understand the significance of where they are." "That much is obvious," replied Hyun-woo. "The question is, how do we explain it without causing a panic?" But Kyung-soo was thinking deeper. "Sir, what if their ignorance is actually an advantage? Every species in the galaxy has been taught from childhood to fear the progenitor ruins. We approach them with terror and reverence, but the humans approach them with simple curiosity." On the ancient structures, Jae-hyun was discovering the truth of Kyung-soo's words. His fighter had landed on a platform that seemed designed for small craft. As soon as he touched down, the platform began to glow with soft lights. Symbols appeared in the air around his ship, not holographic projections, but actual light patterns that hung in space. "Captain," he reported over the radio, "I think I found something important. The structures are responding to my presence. They are showing me instructions, maybe? Like they want to teach me something. Jae-hyun, do not leave your fighter, ordered Captain Bo-ram. We do not know if it is safe. But Jae-hyun was already opening his cockpit. The platform had created an atmosphere around his ship. Somehow, impossibly, there was breathable air. In the middle of space. He stepped out of his fighter and immediately felt a change. The symbols around him shifted and changed, becoming more complex. It was as if the ancient machines were adjusting their lessons to match his ability to understand. Captain, he said, his voice full of wonder, I think these structures are still alive. Not alive like a creature, but alive like a computer. And they have been waiting for someone to teach. Throughout the joint fleet, alien sensor operators were reporting the same impossible readings. The human pilot was walking around on a progenitor platform, in open space, breathing air that should not exist. And the ancient defenses that had killed millions of beings throughout history were not only ignoring him, they were helping him. Admiral Hyun-woo made a decision that would change galactic history. All ships stand down to non-threatening postures, he ordered. We are here to observe and learn, not to fight. Sir, protested his tactical officer, regulations require us to establish a security perimeter. The humans have been here for hours without triggering any hostile responses, replied the admiral. I think our security concerns may be misplaced. As the joint fleet adjusted their formations, Captain Bo-ram made her own historic decision. So Young, open a general communication channel to all alien ships, she ordered. If they want to know what we have found here, we will show them. Captain, should we not keep our discoveries secret until we understand their value? Bo-ram smiled. Knowledge shared is knowledge multiplied. If these structures can teach us something, maybe they can teach everyone. What followed was the most unusual first contact in galactic history. Instead of negotiations or threats, it became a shared exploration. Human scientists worked with alien researchers, comparing notes and sharing discoveries. The language barriers were overcome by the universal language of scientific curiosity. And deep within the ancient structures, systems that had waited for millions of years began to wake up. The progenitors had left their ruins with a purpose. They were not tombs or monuments. They were schools, waiting for students ready to learn. The humans had arrived at exactly the right time, with exactly the right attitude. They approached the unknown without fear, shared their discoveries without greed, and asked questions without shame. For the first time in 3,000 years, the progenitor structures began to teach again, and 12 aliens see. Yoonji had always believed that archaeology was about patience. You spent years carefully brushing dirt away from ancient pottery. You studied fragments for months to understand a single word. You built theories from tiny pieces of evidence. But the progenitor structures were teaching her that some archaeology could happen in minutes. This is impossible, she whispered for the 100th time, staring at her scanner readings. These chambers should not exist. She was standing inside one of the ancient structures, in a room that her human instruments insisted was there, but that alien scanners said was empty space. The walls around her showed moving pictures, not recordings, but live displays of events happening throughout the galaxy. Captain, she said into her communication device, you need to see this. I think I found the control center for the entire complex. Captain Bo-ram's voice came back immediately. Are you safe, Yoonji? I think so. The structure seems to be protecting me. There is atmosphere, gravity, even comfortable temperature. It is like it wants me to be here. What Unji did not know was that her discovery was being watched by hundreds of alien scientists throughout the joint fleet. Their sensors could detect her life signs inside the structure, but they could not see the room she was standing in. It was as if she had stepped into a parallel dimension. Dr. Vexhai, the hegemony's chief archaeologist, stared at his readings in frustration. He had spent his entire career studying progenitor artifacts. He had advanced degrees from the finest universities in the galaxy. But this primitive human, with her simple equipment, was accessing chambers that he had not even known existed. How is this possible? He asked Admiral Hyun-woo over the communication link. We have scanned these structures for centuries. There are no hidden chambers. Perhaps, suggested Kyung-soo, Human scanning technology works differently than ours. Their technology is thousands of years behind ours, protested Dr. Vexhai. Their scanners are barely more advanced than metal detectors. Maybe that is the point, said Kyung-soo quietly. Meanwhile, Yoon-ji was making discoveries that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The walls around her showed maps, but not current ones. These maps showed the galaxy as it had been millions of years ago, when the progenitors still ruled. But as she watched, the displays began to change, showing the galaxy's development over time. She saw the rise and fall of countless civilizations. She watched as new species developed space travel and joined the galactic community. She saw wars fought over resources that no longer mattered and peace treaties signed by species that had gone extinct. But most shocking of all, she began to understand what had happened to the progenitors. They were not destroyed, she breathed, recording everything she saw. They chose to leave. The displays showed the truth. The progenitors had not been conquered or killed by war. They had simply reached a point where they no longer needed physical existence. They had evolved beyond matter and energy, becoming something that existed in the spaces between thoughts. But before they left, they had made preparations. Captain, Yoon-ji called excitedly, I think I understand what these structures are. They are not monuments or weapons, they are gifts. The progenitors left them as graduation presents. Graduation from what? Asked Captain Boram. From being children. The displays are showing me the history of galactic civilization. Every species that develops space travel goes through the same stages. First contact, wars over resources, eventual cooperation, technological advancement. The progenitors have been watching, waiting for the galaxy to grow up. Throughout the joint fleet, alien scientists were receiving data streams from Yoon-ji's simple human scanners. Information that their own advanced sensors could not detect was flowing freely from the progenitor structures to the primitive human equipment. Dr. Vexhai found himself in the humbling position of learning from someone he would have considered a graduate student just hours before. The data is incredible, he admitted to his research team. The human is accessing historical records we never knew existed. According to this information, the progenitors did not just rule the galaxy, they guided its development. Guided how? Asked one of his assistants. Carefully, secretly, every major crisis in galactic history, every near-extinction event, every breakthrough that saved a civilization. The progenitors were there, making subtle adjustments to ensure survival and growth. The implications were staggering. For millions of years, galactic civilization had thought it was developing independently. But according to the data Yoon-ji was uncovering, they had been students in a vast school, with the progenitors as invisible teachers. On the Dauntless, Dong-hyun was having his own revelations. The human physicist had always been fascinated by quantum mechanics. Human understanding of physics was basic compared to galactic standards, but Dong-hyun had spent his life pushing the boundaries of what was possible with simple equipment. Now, as he studied the energy patterns flowing through the progenitor structures, he began to understand something that had escaped the galaxy's best scientists. The barriers around this place, he explained to Captain Boram, they are not meant to keep people out. They are meant to keep people with the wrong mindset out. I do not understand, replied the captain. Every species in the galaxy approaches these structures with preconceived ideas. They expect them to be dangerous, so the structures respond to that expectation. They try to access them with advanced technology, so the structures require even more advanced technology to understand. It is a feedback loop. But humans do not have those preconceptions? Exactly. We approach them with simple curiosity and basic equipment, so the structures respond with simple, clear lessons. We are not trying to conquer or control them, so they do not defend themselves against us. This revelation was spreading throughout the joint fleet as alien scientists compared notes with their human colleagues. The barriers that had protected the void expanse for 3,000 years were not physical or technological. They were psychological. Every advanced civilization had been locked out of the progenitor structures by their own assumptions about what those structures must be. Admiral Hyun-woo was beginning to understand the full scope of what was happening. Dr. Vexhai, he said over the communication link. According to your analysis, How long have the progenitors been waiting for someone to approach their structures with the right attitude? Based on the data the human archaeologist is providing, sir, I would estimate they have been waiting for approximately 3 million years. 3 million years, repeated the Admiral. And in all that time, no species has been able to do what these humans accomplished by accident? It appears not, sir. The psychological barriers were too strong. Every advanced species approached the structures with fear, greed, or aggressive intent. The progenitors designed their systems to respond only to genuine curiosity and peaceful exploration. On the ancient platform where Jae-hyun had landed, even more extraordinary things were happening. The young pilot had discovered that the symbols surrounding his fighter were not just displays, they were interactive lessons. By touching different symbols, he could access different types of information. Mathematical concepts, scientific principles, historical records, all presented in ways that his human mind could understand. It is like the ultimate educational program, he reported to the Dauntless. But it adjusts itself to match my level of understanding. When I learned basic concepts, it showed me more advanced ones. It is teaching me how to learn. Dr. Vex-High, monitoring these reports, felt a mixture of excitement and professional humiliation. The human pilot is accessing educational protocols that we have theorized about for centuries, he told his team. The progenitors did not just leave behind technology. They left behind a teaching system designed to elevate younger species to their level. Why can the humans access it when we cannot? Asked his assistant. Because, said Dr. Vex-High with growing understanding, we approach it as experts trying to understand something complex. They approach it as children trying to learn something new. The system was designed for children. This realization was spreading throughout the Joint Fleet. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had been locked out of the greatest educational resource in history because they were too sophisticated to be taught. The humans, with their basic technology and simple approach, were the first species in millions of years to qualify as students, and the lessons they were learning would change everything. Eunji's voice came over the communication channels, filled with wonder and excitement. Everyone needs to hear this, she said. The progenitors left a message, a final lesson for whoever was ready to learn. Do you want to know what it says? Throughout the Joint Fleet, hundreds of beings held their breath. It says, congratulations. You have learned to approach the unknown without fear, to share knowledge without greed, and to explore without conquest. You are ready for the next stage of your development. Welcome to the real galaxy. As these words sank in, every being in the Joint Fleet realized the same thing. The galaxy they thought they knew was just the beginning. The progenitors had not left. They had simply moved to a higher level of existence, and now, thanks to a species nobody had heard of just hours before, everyone was invited to join them. The question was, Hyojin had never wanted to be a diplomat. She was a geologist who had joined the dauntless expedition to study alien minerals. But when 12 angry alien civilizations needed someone to talk to, Captain Boram had chosen her for a simple reason. She was the only crew member who did not seem intimidated by the situation. Just be yourself, the captain had told her. Tell them the truth and treat them like people. Now Hyojin found herself in a virtual meeting room with the most powerful beings in the galaxy, trying to prevent what could become the biggest war in galactic history. The humans must leave immediately, insisted the Zephyrian representative, her blue skin flickering with anger. They have violated sacred space and awakened forces they cannot understand. With respect, Hyojin replied calmly, we did not know this space was sacred. We detected an empty star system and came to explore. If we have offended anyone, we apologize. But we are learning incredible things here. Would it not be better to learn together? Admiral Hyun-woo watched in amazement as the simple human diplomat said exactly the wrong thing according to galactic protocol, and somehow made it work. She had no training in the complex rules that governed interspecies communication. She did not understand the careful balance of threats and concessions that normally characterized these meetings. She just spoke honestly and directly, and it was having an extraordinary effect. Learning together? Asked the resonant ambassador, their crystalline form shimmering with interest. You would share what you have discovered? Of course, said Hyojin, as if the question was silly. Knowledge belongs to everyone. if these structures can teach us about the universe, why would we keep that to ourselves? The delegates looked at each other in confusion. In galactic politics, knowledge was power. Species guarded their discoveries jealously, using them for advantage in trade negotiations and territorial disputes. But this human seemed genuinely puzzled by the idea of keeping secrets. "You do not understand," said the hegemony representative. "Information has value, strategic advantage, economic potential." Hyjin shrugged. "Maybe. But if everyone learns together, everyone benefits together. That seems more valuable than temporary advantages." What Hyjin did not know was that her words were being translated and broadcast throughout the joint fleet. Thousands of alien crew members were hearing human philosophy for the first time, the radical idea that cooperation might be more valuable than competition. Meanwhile, on the ancient platform, Wu Jin was about to make a discovery that would change everything. The human engineer had always been curious about how things worked. While his colleagues studied what the progenitor structures could teach them, Wu Jin was more interested in how they taught. He had been examining the technological systems that created the interactive displays and atmospheric fields. "This is incredible," he muttered to himself, running his simple scanners over what appeared to be a control interface. "The power distribution system is unlike anything we have ever seen. It is almost organic." He touched what looked like an activation panel, trying to understand how the energy flowed through the ancient circuits. The moment his hand made contact, everything changed. Light exploded across the structure, racing along pathways that had been dark for millions of years. The glow spread from building to building, awakening systems throughout the complex. And then, impossibly, the light kept spreading. Across space, invisible beams of energy reached out from the void expanse toward destinations throughout the galaxy. On distant worlds, structures that had been thought to be natural formations began to glow with the same ancient light. Space stations that had been classified as asteroids revealed their true nature as progenitor outposts. Throughout the galaxy, the hidden network that the progenitors had left behind was coming to life. "Wu Jin, what did you do?" came Captain Bo-Ram's voice over the communication system. I am not sure," replied the engineer, staring at the control panel that was now covered in glowing symbols. "I think I accidentally turned something on. Every ship in the Joint Fleet sensor operators were reporting the same impossible readings. Energy signatures were appearing throughout the galaxy, thousands of them, all pulsing with the same rhythm as the structures in the void expanse. Admiral. Hyun-woo felt his heart skip a beat as he realized what was happening. "The entire network," he whispered. "The humans have activated the entire progenitor network." Dr. Vex High's voice came over the communication channel, filled with excitement and terror. "Admiral, we are receiving signals from progenitor sites throughout the galaxy, sites we did not even know existed. The human engineer has awakened the entire system." In the diplomatic meeting, Hye-jin suddenly found herself dealing with a much bigger crisis. "You have doomed us all," screamed the Zephyrian representative. "The network was dormant for good reason. Who knows what horrors you have unleashed?" But Hye-jin was reading the data streaming to her from Wu Jin's accidental activation. "I do not think we have unleashed horrors," she said slowly. "I think we have unleashed an invitation." She shared her screen with the other delegates. The data was clear. The awakening network was not activating weapons or defense systems. It was broadcasting a simple message throughout the galaxy, in every known language and many unknown ones. "Welcome to the next stage of galactic civilization. Please gather at your local progenitor facility for orientation." The meeting room fell, silent as the implications sank in. The progenitors had not left behind a few ruins. They had left behind an entire infrastructure, hidden throughout the galaxy, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And somehow, a human engineer trying to understand a simple control panel had triggered that moment. On worlds throughout the galaxy, beings were staring at structures they had seen every day but never understood. The mysterious pyramid on Zephyr Prime was glowing with welcoming light. The crystalline formations on the resonant homeworld were singing with harmonious frequencies. Ancient ruins on 1,000 worlds were revealing themselves to be intact teaching facilities. "How many sites are there?" asked Admiral Hyun-woo. Dr. Vexhai was frantically coordinating reports from research stations throughout the galaxy. Preliminary estimates suggest tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. Sir, the progenitors did not just have an empire. They built a university. A university with the entire galaxy as its campus, and every sapient species as potential students. But the biggest surprise was still to come. Su Bin had been monitoring communication frequencies throughout the crisis. As the youngest member of the Dauntless crew, she had been given the simple job of listening for any signals that might indicate hostile intent from the alien fleet. Instead, she had discovered something extraordinary. "Captain," she called excitedly, "I am receiving a new type of signal. It is not coming from the alien ships or the progenitor structures. It is coming from everywhere." "Everywhere?" "Yes, ma'am. The signal appears to be originating from empty space itself, and Captain, I think it is trying to talk to us." Captain Boram felt a chill run down her spine. "What kind of signal?" "It is very faint, but it is definitely intelligent. Patterns within patterns, like a language that exists in multiple dimensions. And Captain, it knows our names." Throughout the Joint Fleet, communications officers were reporting the same phenomenon. A vast intelligence was speaking to them, from the fabric of space itself, using frequencies that should not have been able to carry information. The voice, when they finally managed to decode it, was warm and ancient and infinitely patient. "Greetings, children of the galaxy," it said. "We are the progenitors, and we have been waiting for you to be ready. The human species has shown us that you have learned the lessons we hope to teach. Curiosity without conquest, sharing without selfishness, exploration without exploitation." Admiral Hyun-woo found himself speaking to empty space. "You are alive? But the historical records said you had evolved beyond physical existence." "We have," came the reply. "We exist now in the spaces between thoughts, in the quantum foam that underlies reality. But we have been watching, waiting for you to reach the point where you could join us." "Join you how?" asked Hae-jin. "By choosing. The network that the human engineer has activated will give every species in the galaxy the same choice we once faced, to remain bound by matter and energy, or to evolve beyond them. But this time, you will not have to make the choice alone. You can evolve together." The revelation sent shockwaves throughout the Joint Fleet. The progenitors were offering to share the secret of their transcendence with every species in the galaxy, but it was not a gift that could be forced on anyone. It had to be chosen freely. "What if we are not ready?" asked the resonant ambassador. "Then, you wait," replied the progenitor voice gently. "The network will remain active. The teaching facilities will continue to operate. You can learn at your own pace. Make the choice when you feel ready. There is no hurry. We have waited millions of years. We can wait millions more." But even as the progenitors spoke of patience, everyone knew that the galaxy had just changed, forever. The old rules no longer applied. The barriers between species seemed suddenly insignificant compared to the vast choice that lay before them all. And it had all started with a small human ship appearing where it was not supposed to be, crewed by B. Chang Min had been captain of exploration vessels for 15 years, but he had never faced a decision like this. He stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, looking out at the most extraordinary sight in galactic history. The progenitor structures were no longer ancient ruins. They were alive with purpose, glowing with warm light that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of a vast heartbeat. Around them, ships from 12 different civilizations floated in perfect formation, no longer a threatening fleet but a gathering of students, and throughout it all, the voice of the progenitors continued to speak, not through technology, but through the very fabric of space itself. "The choice we offer," the ancient voice was saying, "is not just for your leaders or your governments. Every individual being must decide for themselves whether they wish to transcend physical existence and join us in the spaces between reality." Chang Min had replaced Captain Boram when she had chosen to accept the progenitor invitation 3 days earlier. Along with half the human crew, she had simply stepped forward into one of the glowing chambers and vanished into a higher form of existence. Those who remained behind could still sense their presence, like voices heard in another room. They were not gone. They had become something more. "Captain," said Jiwoo from her engineering station. I am receiving reports from Earth. The progenitor facility there has fully activated. People are gathering from all over the planet to see it. Changmin nodded. The same thing was happening on every inhabited world in the galaxy. Hidden progenitor structures had revealed themselves, each one offering the same choice: evolve or remain, with no judgment either way. What amazed him most was how calmly everyone was taking it. Sir, reported So Young from Communications, Admiral Hyunwoo is requesting a final conference with all remaining leaders before he makes his choice. Patch him through. The main screen showed the holographic meeting room that had become familiar over the past few days. But now, instead of 12 suspicious alien delegations, it held friends who had learned to work together in the face of the impossible. My friends, said Admiral Hyunwoo, his voice carrying a mixture of excitement and sadness, I wanted to speak with you before I accept the progenitor invitation. In my long military career, I have seen many battles fought over resources, territory, ideology. But I have never seen anything as beautiful as what we have accomplished here together. Kyung-soo, who had chosen to remain in physical form to help coordinate the transition, smiled. We have learned that the universe is much larger than we imagined, and much friendlier too. Changmin looked around the virtual room at the beings, who had become humanity's first galactic friends. What will happen to those who choose to remain? We will continue, said Dr. Vexhai, who had also chosen to stay. The progenitors have made it clear that both paths have value. Those who transcend will explore the infinite possibilities of non-physical existence. Those who remain will continue to grow and learn in the material universe, and we will stay connected through the network. It was true. The progenitor network allowed communication between the transcended and the physical, creating a galactic community that spanned multiple levels of existence. The most important thing, added Hyejin's voice from wherever she now existed, is that everyone gets to choose for themselves. No pressure, no judgment, no wrong answers. Changmin marveled at how naturally his former crew member had adapted to her new form of existence. Her consciousness could still speak with them, could still laugh and joke and offer advice. She was still Hyejin, just more. I have made my decision, announced Admiral Hyunwoo. I choose to transcend. But first, I want to ensure that those remaining have everything they need to continue the work we have started. Over the following hours, Changmin watched as being after being made their choice. Some chose transcendence, stepping forward into the glowing chambers and becoming part of the vast consciousness that the progenitors had become. Others chose to remain physical, continuing their lives but with new knowledge and new possibilities. The remarkable thing was that nobody felt abandoned or left behind. The network ensured that everyone remained connected, regardless of their form of existence. Captain, said Subin, I am receiving a special transmission from the progenitor network. It is addressed to you personally. Changmin accepted the communication and suddenly found himself standing in a space that existed somewhere between thought and reality. Before him stood a figure that looked human, but somehow contained multitudes, Bo-Ram, but also every being who had ever chosen transcendence. Changmin, she said with a smile that contained universes, we wanted to thank you for what humanity has given the galaxy. What have we given? He asked. We just stumbled into your territory by accident. You gave everyone a choice, replied the collective progenitor consciousness. For millions of years, we guided galactic civilization, but we could never force them to evolve. They had to reach that point naturally, but they were trapped by their own fears and assumptions. So you waited? We waited. But we began to worry that we had waited too long, that the galaxy had become too set in its ways to ever be ready. Then you arrived. A species young enough to approach the unknown without fear, innocent enough to share discoveries without greed, brave enough to treat strangers as friends. Changmin began to understand. We were not the first to be ready. We were the key that helped everyone else become ready. Exactly. You showed 12 civilizations that cooperation was possible, that knowledge shared was knowledge multiplied, that the universe was friendly to those who approached it with open hearts. In 3 days, you achieved what we thought might take another 1,000 years. The conversation was interrupted by an alert from the physical world. Captain, came Jiwoo's voice, We are receiving reports from throughout the galaxy. The choice is spreading faster than anyone expected. Entire worlds are deciding together, some to transcend, some to remain, some split between both options. Chang Min returned his attention to the bridge, where his remaining crew was monitoring the greatest change in galactic history. "Sir," reported So Young, "preliminary estimates suggest that about 40% of galactic civilization is choosing transcendence. The rest are remaining physical, but with access to the network. And Captain, new species are emerging from hiding. Species we never knew existed are revealing themselves now that the galaxy feels safe." Chang Min smiled. The galaxy was becoming a much more interesting place. Over the following weeks, a new equilibrium emerged. Those who had transcended became teachers and guides, sharing wisdom and perspective from their expanded consciousness. Those who remained physical became explorers and builders, using new knowledge to create wonders that bridge the gap between matter and thought. Trade between species became trade between friends. Conflicts that had simmered for centuries evaporated when beings could literally experience each other's perspectives through the network. Scientific discoveries were shared instantly across the galaxy, accelerating progress beyond anything previously imagined. And at the center of it all were the humans, still the youngest, still the most technologically primitive, but somehow essential to everything that followed. "Captain," said Jiwoo one day as they prepared to leave the void expanse, "I have been thinking about what we found here." "What about it?" "We came looking for an empty star system to explore. Instead, we found the meaning of existence itself. Do you think that was luck, or were we guided here?" Chang Min looked out at the progenitor structures, now bustling with beings from 100 different species, all learning together. "Does it matter? We are here. We made friends. We learned things that changed everything. Whether it was luck or destiny, it turned out well." As the Dauntless prepared to depart for Earth, Chang Min received one final communication from the transcended consciousness. "Where will you go now?" asked the voice that contained all the friends they had made and lost and found again. "Home first," said Chang Min. "Earth wants to hear about everything we have discovered. Then, everywhere. The galaxy is full of friends we have not met yet." "And they are waiting to meet you," replied the consciousness warmly. "Take care, Chang Min. Thank you for teaching us that sometimes the best way to solve an ancient mystery is to approach it like it is a new friend." As the Dauntless jumped back toward human space, Chang Min reflected on how much the universe had changed in just a few weeks. The galaxy was no longer a cold, competitive place where species fought over resources and territory. It had become a community where beings helped each other grow and learn and become more than they had ever imagined possible. And it had all started with a simple human curiosity, the desire to see what was out there, to learn something new, to make friends with the unknown. Chang Min smiled as Earth appeared on their sensors, knowing that the best adventures were still ahead of them. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and now everyone was exploring it together, just the way it should be.